everyone, something huge has happened, and at the end of the video I'll show you how you can get involved next time. So watch carefully and tell me, is this something you might want to be part of next time? Back in January, I invited you to come and take part in something special. Something that I thought could change the face of game jams. Squid Games had recently become a worldwide phenomenon on Netflix, and game jams were still game jams. But what if there was a way to mash those two oddly different crazes into one amazing challenge? Ladies and gentlemen, game devs, creators, and everyone else of all creeds, colors, and persuasions, I present to you Game Dev Knockout. GDKO is a 7-round knockout competition comprising of a series of tasks. Each round, the devs would have to complete the task in order to be in with a chance of progressing to the next round. Some rounds would focus on sound design, some art or storytelling, and occasionally the devs would have to make a game. There was no doubt, the longer you stayed in the competition, the more you'd be tested, and the better and more complete game dev you'd become. The hype was real, and devs were falling over themselves to predict the winners.
Who I reckon will come third is Andrew David J. Foozle CC is number 2 on my list. Now, in my opinion, he's first because his game is so well rounded and his stats do show.
Create a player character with a unique ability.
The task for round 1 was to create a playable character with a unique ability. 188 devs entered, but only 80 would progress. And to help make that happen, we'd need some judges. Now, I didn't want just any old judging panel for GDKO. Judges needed to be dripping with integrity, knowledge, and experience. They'd need expertise across all facets of game development, and a community of followers behind them. I scoured itch, YouTube, and Twitter, reaching out to only the best darn creators I could find. Unfortunately, none of them replied, so I settled for this lot. Only kidding, of course. Wadeep, Sidfish, Helper Wesley, Marlin Media, and Icoso were the first devs I asked, and thankfully, all of them said yes. With the judges nailed down, and round 1 reaching its conclusion, it was time to throw a curveball into the GDKO melting pot. Each round there would be a wild card. The wild card would be picked from those devs who didn't qualify, and each round a different judge would have the duty of deciding which developer got thrown a lifeline.
GDKO Round 1 began on 1st of January with 188 game devs signed up to risk reputation and ridicule for a glimmer of a chance at glory. We had creators of all skill levels, but skill alone wouldn't be enough to win GDKO, as many failed to understand the relentlessness of the competition and became unsuspecting victims to burnout.
The task was to create a player character with a unique ability. The devs needed to think outside of the box to create something different. Shooting, jumping, and dashing abilities were replaced by outstandingly unique abilities, such as rubbing your tummy and patting your head, turning into a pile of ants, using your hair to swing around, and whatever this is. Andrew David snapped up first place in round 1. Evan Does Dev was the wildcard pick, but will Evan capitalize on this newfound opportunity in round 2? Before we continue with the video, just a massive thank you and a shout out to my YouTube channel members and Patreon subscribers: Foozle CC, Zan, Retro Galaxy, Fan Van, Jet Simon, Olivia Bernier, Amaro Lewis, Enmark Games, Seth Coble, Matt, Tor Alexanderson, Rob, Gerard Demont, Lighting Cat, Martin K, 60 Plus Game Dev, Yanni Boy, Ty Days, and Luna Heartless. Thanks for supporting the game dev journey, and for more information about what's on offer in the Patreon, there's a link in the description.
Federico plays 17th in round 1 of Spirit Void. Federico enjoys making art, music, videos, and animations, and is also a huge gamer, so naturally, game development became a perfect fit. In the beginning, Federico struggled like many of us with programming logic. For the most part, Federico enjoys making small prototypes and experimental games, but says in the future he'll do some larger projects. But for now, Federico must focus on making it to round 3.
Give your character a toy to interact with.
Round 2 asked the devs to give their new character a toy to play with, and the judging would be based on how long that toy kept the player playing for. This task challenged you to make your game fun to play.
60 devs would be progressing, and as it happens, round 2 threw me a curveball of my own, as I certainly didn't prepare for this outcome. Only 60 devs managed to submit their task, meaning everyone who submitted progressed to round 3. As it happened, it was devs versus the clock, and Foozle CC took top spot, jumping from 11th in round 1 with Void Knight to 1st. with a super addictive test your strength game. Sadly, even after round 1's lifeline, we must part ways with Evan Does Dev, as he failed to submit an entry for round 2.
Make a game without art.
Round 3 would test our dev's storytelling skills and would also give Mighty Jor a perfect opportunity to deep dive into the backstory of belly-rubbing Randy 3000, a game that was developing a bit of a cult following among the Discord community.
Huge talent was on show in this round, with notable mentions going to Enmark Games for his entry The Diffuser, Kingjaw with BNE Serum, and Fennec Fu Games with Earthmover. But ultimately it was Van der Vash Generator who stole the show with Pathway, jumping from a 45th place finish in round 2 with The Wind and the Ladybug, to first with a game about a simple moving line that unraveled a wonderfully well-constructed story.
Van der Vash Generator was created by a two-man team, Jonathan and Nick. Throughout GDKO, they've been participating as two separate competitors, Jonathan as Van der Vash Generator and Nick as Prince Galador. The games Jonathan has produced for JDKO so far represent his first steps as a solo developer. The most enjoyable part of creating games for Jonathan is watching people interact with them. Being able to affect people in this way is incredibly special.
Round 1 winner Andrew David drops to 28th, and Dev Pirates grabs the last qualifying place with his ironically named game, The Start of a Good Day, which almost turned out to be anything but. Will next round prove too much for the swashbuckling game dev? Helper Wesley picked Helper Duck as the wild card, and the competition moves on to round 4.
Dev Pirates started making video games at a young age and states that he might actually be pretty good at it now if he didn't put it aside for a few decades. When Dev Pirates started back in the 80s, there were no engines and virtually no help for beginners. Nowadays, communities are much better, and Dev Pirates is finally back making games again.
Create a customizable experience.
In round 4, the devs had to make a customizable experience. This didn't necessarily have to be a game, but just something that the player could tinker with. The more options the player had, the higher the dev would rank. 25 devs will progress to round 5.
Federico Calchera and Yanni Boy made games where you can build your own levels. Dev Pirates, coming from the verge of elimination in round 3, jumps into 3rd place with his game Backyard Fun, which lets you use your own imagination to completely customize the game. Van der Vash drops back to 18th with the Van der Vash Generator. Was the last round a fluke, perhaps? We'll have to wait to find out. Game Favorites is quietly sneaking up the ranks, snagging a personal best finish and landing inside the top 10 for the first time with his game Broken Memory Battle Mode. Is there a new contender emerging in the competition, perhaps? Top spot in round 4 goes to Yanni Boy and Fennec Fu Games with their games Editor and Pixel Avatar Maker.
So I'm giving my win to Sleeping Forge.
And we move on to round 5.
Yanni Boy got into game development during the peak of the 2020 pandemic and as a way of doing something that wasn't spending every waking hour entertaining children in the house. Yanni Boy also streams on Twitch, documenting his game development journey. The best thing in the world, according to Yanni Boy, is watching someone play something that you made and enjoying it.
Recreate a classic arcade game from the 1980s.
In true Squid Game elimination fashion, round 5 turns a corner and pits Dev versus Dev for the first time in the competition.
What kind of nonsense is this? Makes no sense at all!
The remaining devs would be secretly paired against one another and wouldn't find out who their opponent was until after the voting period. In true GDKO style, cruelty prevailed with some great devs ill-fatedly paired together. In a round where only first place is safe from elimination, the devs started to feel the pressure.
The task was to recreate the classic 80s game Leaper by Bugbite. We had some create variations of the game, with each dev putting their own spin of things.
Some devs opted to create the game as closely to the original as possible, but which approach would carry the most favour in the voting period?
Yanni Boy drops just 1 place to 2nd, but former winner Fennec Fu nosedives into 16th with Peeper. Was it enough, however, to keep them both in the competition? In a cruel twist of fate, 3rd place Prince Galador and 4th place R3 games were paired, meaning we had to say goodbye to R3. Only the GDKO judges could step in and restore order with the wildcard pick. games landed in last place, but dodged a bullet as their opponent failed to submit. Hopper by Turquoise Moon was spared by the judges, and we're on to the semi-final.
Prince Galador, aka the other half of Vandervoss Generator, got into game development through a desire to create weird and wonderful games. There's something magical about being able to mix art, sound, interactivity, and math into something that can be described as a game. Prince Galador's biggest challenge getting into game development was the fear of writing proper code, and to his own admission, has been getting by mostly managing to avoid writing proper code.
Create a one-button game with a theme. Audio.
It's round 6 and the penultimate round for the remaining devs. 13 devs remain, and the GDKO judges will be voting on which 5 will reach the final. The task for round 6 was to create a simple one-button game with a focus on audio. The judging will be no longer in the hands of the competitors, but instead solely up to the GDKO judges, and here's how they ranked the semi-final games. 11th place goes to Ponk Games with Fighter. 10th place goes to Spoon Sweet with Burple. 9th place goes to Dev Pirates with Skullgore. 8th place goes to Yanni Boy with Adventures of Xanderwood. 7th place goes to Turquoise Moon with Judgment Day. We now have 6 devs left in the competition and only 5 places available for the final. And would you believe it? We have a tie for 5th place. Tied 5th place goes to Game Favorites with Egg Baguette and JJ and Friends with The Galactic Enterprise, which means we need to head back to the GDKO judges one final time for a best of 5 votes face-off to see if Game Favorites or JJ and Friends will reach the final. Well folks, there you have it. JJ and Friends just pips Game Favorites at the post by 1 vote, and now we have our final 5 devs ready to face the final challenge. Here's how the rest of the games were ranked. 5th place, JJ and Friends with The Galactic Enterprise. In 4th, Vandervoss Generator with The Time We Have. In 3rd, Federico Calchera with One Punch Beat. In 2nd, Prince Galador with Jazz Dash, which means Kingjaw takes top spot with A Little Alien.
Kingjaw started with the Scratch game engine until eventually moving on to Unity after watching a lot of game dev content on YouTube. Kingjaw also started a YouTube channel to encourage people to play his games. The biggest struggle for Kingjaw was learning all the aspects of game dev, such as art and music, of which YouTube has been a great learning resource.
The final of GDKO will run for 1 month from the 1st of May until the 31st of May, with the winner being announced on Saturday the 11th of June. The task for the final round will be to remake any game or entry from GDKO. From any dev, from any round, you'll be judged on how much better, in the eyes of the GDKO judges, your game is compared to the original. Scoring will be based on how much better your game is, but will also reflect the complexity of the original game. So picking a well-made game from a later round and improving it could score you more points than choosing a less complete game from an earlier round. You don't have to replicate the style of the original game, you can put your own spin on it. But it has to be clearly recognizable. Well done, good luck to everyone left in the competition. I'll be back with the final video of the series and revealing the winner of GDKO 2022 on the 11th of June. Until then, thanks for watching, and if you want to be part of GDKO 2023, there's a link in the description to register.